Protoframes. Well, the Protoframes of 1999, they are people just like you and me. Well, kind of. They're actually people who have special powers, kind of, a little bit, so they aren't really like us. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I know for sure that today I'm talking about the Protoframes from the Hex. Now, complete spoiler warning, this is going to go in depth with each character as a whole from the Hex quest and after, and it will probably spoil just a few things included before this quest, so just keep that in mind when continuing. Now, we know a bit of what Protoframes are, which in very simple terms are a Warframe and human mix, all thanks to Albrecht and Trotty. I do go further into this in a video right here, so I will not repeat myself in this video. So as me recording this, there are 10 Protoframes that include Arthur, Aoi, Amir, Quincy, Eleanor, Lettie, Flare, Minerva, Kaya, and Velimir. Now to clarify a little bit, I will be talking about each one's backstory and other events or details that may pertain to who they are as a person/Warframe. Though I will not bring up much about the Hex quest as we all know what happened there, but essentially they are in a time loop with the Drifter and died at least once, but they are alive now, so yeah. On top of this, we do learn a lot from Kim messages, so I may miss something, and there is also romancing. Now, in video games, it's usually canon per player when it comes to the romancing, so that being said, I won't talk a lot about it here, but if I do ever go in depth about this, I will probably just do a whole video on it just for the romancing stuff. So that is every general thing you need to know when it comes to what I am talking about here. So I hope you enjoy this video and hopefully you learn something new. With that being said, we might as well just jump right into it. Starting with our man Arthur. Now, he was the first Protoframe we viewed in the game as we played as him in the Whispers in the Walls quest. He is your average military guy, a soldier at heart, but really just a teddy bear on the inside. He was made a tough guy by everything he has experienced. Now, he shared his childhood with his twin sister Eleanor, which I will be mentioning many of the other Protoframes in each other's stories, but I will go deeper into their history a little later. But anyway, Arthur and Eleanor grew up with a great relationship between each other, barely having any fights. They were so close that Arthur even let Eleanor braid his hair and practice makeup on him. Yeah, that's a close relationship, because if my sisters even touched my face with makeup, I would slap them. Not really. But that isn't the only thing they do together. This started after arriving to Hollowvania, or at least from what I can tell. They ended up spending a day each year where they commemorate the ones that they have lost, such as friends, fiancés, parents, or even innocent bystanders. Now, to get to Hollowvania, Arthur had to do some developing. Now, he started by joining the Britannic Army's Crimson. This was led by the close friend and fiance of Eleanor named Christopher. Christopher ended up dying to a roadside bomb, which caused Arthur to take his place and be promoted. This is where Quincy and Arthur meet, as Quincy joined the army under Arthur's command. Eventually, they were sent on a mission to kill all possible enemies. The problem with this is that it included some innocent people, which Arthur did not like. So Arthur confronted his higher-ups and nearly got a dishonorable discharge, which would result in losing any veteran benefits and all of that. After some arguing and threatening, Arthur got an honorable discharge and left, with Quincy following right after. But his time with the military type stuff wasn't over just yet, because he joined the ICR, or the International Crisis Response. There he met Aoi and they inevitably started dating. Eventually, joining the ICR, Arthur with Aoi and Quincy were sent to Hollowvania. After seeing the problem with the infection there in the Scaldra, Arthur told Eleanor everything that was going on, which made her come to Hollowvania as well and report on everything happening. Unfortunately, the ICR were also kind of bad guys, similar to the Britannic Army, sort of repeating history, ordering Arthur to kill all possible infected, of course including some innocents. While doing these missions, Arthur and the crew got infected and sought a cure from the mysterious Dr. Albrecht and Trotty. Arthur was among the first to offer to be a part of Entradi's initial experiments. There he was injected with the Helminth infestation strain from Entradi's time. This turned Arthur into the Excalibur Warframe, or at least partially, as he kept his mind intact, compared to most actual Warframes. Entradi ended up taking repeated samples from not just Arthur, but every Protoframe made, and at this time of their infestation, we do not know if they'll succumb and turn into a Warframe. There is reason to believe that they will, but we'll get to that later on. Now, everything I mentioned was more of a linear timeline for Arthur, so what I'm going to start talking about now is a bunch more miscellaneous stuff that may not have a great spot in the timeline, such as things we learn in the Kim. Now, Arthur doesn't like the band online, it's not for everyone, of course, and he also has a teddy bear named Sebastian, who he occasionally talks to, which, I mean, everyone does need something to talk to, I suppose. Another thing he did make a whole big deal was the time Drifter spent in Deviri. He must have wanted to understand who Drifter was, or he was just kind of curious on what Deviri was. It also may be to protect the other Hex members, as he deeply cares about them, whether he shows it or not. In fact, his scar on his eye was actually caused by Amir, who at the time lacked control over his powers, shortly after getting them, of course. But yet Arthur does not hold him accountable. That's just how much he cares about these people. Some other things he loves is alcohol, which is actually a small dream of his, where he would love to open a distillery, which I would assume also has food there, as he loves to cook as well. This was shown when he attempted to make square spaghetti for Drifter and failed miserably. But he didn't fail when making treats for Amir's Fables and Frontiers. Now, unfortunately, we do learn about some of his dark side. He struggles with things in his head, as many people do. One thing is his seriousness. It sort of prevents him from relaxing, and this started all the way in childhood. Luckily, in Halvania, being surrounded by true friends, he starts relaxing and even singing in karaoke again, though he does struggle with a degree of embarrassment. But circling back to his seriousness, he does tend to get excluded from a few things because of it, such as a group game of hide and seek. Everyone believed that he would just be against it, yet he would rather be at least invited, so that kind of hurt him in a way. And the seriousness hurt his relationship with Aoi. Like I mentioned, they did date, but he was so serious that he just lost her, though they do stay friends. So during Star Days, or Venusia, or pretty much Valentine's Day, Arthur was given a gift of 1,000 cranes from Aoi, which signifies good luck. Arthur didn't seem at all interested in it, and that really hurt Aoi. So that's when they broke up, which was probably for the best according to Eleanor, as their ideals didn't really match up. On top of this, his relationship with Eleanor was also damaged, mainly because Arthur started losing trust in her as the difficulty of talking to her increased, as she would really only talk through telepathy. On top of that, her attitude in the battlefield against enemies definitely harmed that trust as well. And lastly, he does suffer from a degree of PTSD. We learned this because he ended up helping Amir work past some of his past trauma, as the Drifter advised. Having this PTSD allowed for Arthur to understand where Amir was coming from, though it's not good, not good at all, to struggle with PTSD. So if you do have it, go get some help. So yeah, Arthur is a deep character, tough and rugged on the outside, full of emotion on the inside. His best friend died, he lost his relationship with Aoi, and even injured his relationship with Eleanor. On top of that, he was forced to potentially kill innocent people, yet he still finds a way to find enjoyment in things he likes, such as cooking, singing, and drinking. Next is Aoi, a sweet and caring individual who really does not like jokes at another person's expense. Now that means don't talk about kicking babies or pretty much anything that could hurt someone's feelings. To her, that's just bad taste. But anyway, Aoi essentially raised herself. Now, Aoi's parents weren't bad. They are still on decent terms, but as a child, it really hurt to see her parents constantly busy with work. Father was an aerospace engineer who worked on rockets. Her mother was a space systems design teacher. Yeah, this did set high expectations with Aoi's future. So the parents not being around led to Aoi's decision to join the army. This disappointed her parents quite a bit, but luckily it didn't break up the family, though Aoi might have a brother, so there could be a lot more going on behind the scenes. So I guess we'll see. Aoi grew up in the major city of Canada. I think I'm saying that right, because this is pretty much the equivalent to Canada for Warframe. So yeah, I think I said that right. I'm just gonna avoid saying it again. Anyway, she joined the ICR, where she met Arthur and Shirley Quincy. In her time in the ICR, she was seen as a ditz instead of being taken seriously, which she kind of has a love-hate relationship with. She hates being seen as the ditz, but also she believes it is the secret hidden power that she has, as some people may underestimate her, giving her the advantage in most scenarios. But I am sure somewhere deep inside it is eating at her, and it hurts more than one can imagine. Now similar to Arthur, she was one of the first volunteers for Andrade's Protoframe experiments, turning her into the version of Mag. After being made into a Protoframe, she was involved in something known as Suspicious Correspondence. It's a secret page on the Warframe website that mimics the Palm 2 from Warframe. This archived chat messages during the time in Albania. The most notable messages corresponded to Owie was from someone named Lord Saberwolf, who was claiming to be Owie's brother. They were searching for Owie, but other messengers in the chat showed some backlash, leading them to leave. Surprisingly, she did make her way into the chat under a secret account and started warning its members of the repercussions of being unhelpful and encouraging them to protect themselves, either implying that she did not want to be found or that her so-called brother was not real. Nothing much came from that, at least in the game or from what I can tell. So going from the Kim conversations, we do learn a bit more, like she did date Arthur, which I mentioned earlier. But to repeat it, Owie gave Arthur 100 folded cranes for a sign of good luck for Venusia or Star Days, which is the Warframe equivalent of Valentine's Day. Arthur really upset her for not caring about it, which caused their breakup. However, they are still really good friends. Another thing she did was essentially stop Eleanor from leaving the Hex. Eleanor almost left, as we will hear in her part, but Owie stopped her by closing the garage doors. She didn't know what was going on through Eleanor's head at the time, which we will talk about in Eleanor's part like I said, but essentially those two sat there talking for quite a long time, which cleared up a lot and made Eleanor feel a lot better, inevitably causing her to stay with the Hex. Moving on to other things, if you convince her to play Fable and Frontiers, then she will make little figurines, which really isn't hard since she is a sucker for the games and she can manipulate metal, I believe. She even collects Jinimon cards, which are game adjacent, as she just collects them for the looks, but that's besides the point. Along with that, she loves online, especially the member Zeke, which you'll hear about a lot. On top of that, she does act as the team mechanic and widely considered the heart of the team with everyone for the most part. She couldn't really win over Kaya right away, but it works out eventually, I think. She also tells us she knows how to play the piano, offering to teach us anytime. We also help her or Amir in a long-standing rivalry for who the cook is that night, where the loser has to cook a pizza. It's a nice friendly competition with whichever side you are on will most likely win. Lastly, as nice and sweet as she is, and as much as she deeply cares about the Hex, I'm really gonna regret saying this, but she has a bondage kink, apparently. I guess with all my time in the back room, I never really picked up on that. Yeah, well, at least I know now, and we know everything about her. Lucky us. Like I mentioned, Eleanor is twin siblings to Arthur. They were extremely close and rarely ever fought. She even used to braid his hair every once in a while, and her core memory is of her grandmother, Callista Penrose Nightingale, who suffered from something known as Pelham syndrome, which this all caused her mental state to decline, where she would just start shrieking for long periods of time. Her grandmother would stay at the family house, constantly screaming and being in a hysterical state. It got to the point where her dad would constantly cover her with pillows to quiet her down. Eventually, she died in her sleep, but Eleanor actually believes her dad killed her grandmother because he just got tired of it. She would eventually believe that Arthur would one day do this to her. This memory was buried as she eventually got engaged to Christopher, who was mentioned in Arthur's story, but he was in the military with Arthur and very close friends. However, he died to a roadside bomb, which caused Eleanor to despise heroes, even though she knows Arthur and Christopher would disagree. This is one of the reasons she gets together with Arthur each year, all to honor Christopher's death. But some time goes by and Eleanor was contacted by Arthur. This was when she was a journalist, which she mainly did to tell the truth and do good with her journalistic powers. But anyway, Arthur told her about the Holvania area and situation going on there, so she got a forged visa and passport from this guy named Danny McAvoy, which is probably irrelevant, and so she entered the city illegally. She then made her way to the subway where she encountered the tech rot for the first time, which she actually named it that. In fact, it was originally known as Testudo Syndrome or the Technocyte virus. With her close encounter with it, she eventually became infested, which caused her to seek help from Entrati. As you may be able to tell, she did have a more advanced version of the infection, causing her to be able to hear tech rot itself and grow a big tongue. Through the help of Entrati, she became the Protoframe of Nyx. This allowed her to use telepathy, which was useful because the large tongue doesn't really let her speak. She does hide the fact that she may be able to hear the thoughts of everyone else so that no one hates her for it, because that is a huge problem with Eleanor, which is how people view her on how she is now. She even attempted to subtly leave, believing everyone was better off without her. Owie managed to catch her before leaving and convinced her to stay. There was a lot on Eleanor's mind, so the fact that Allie was there for her made her want to stay and had a little bit of hope. Eventually, Arthur and Allie broke up and Eleanor and Arthur had their fight, pushing them farther away. In a way, she caused it, but Arthur was a little unreasonable at the time. So what she did was she used her telepathy to dig up what was wrong with him during the mission. This was after the breakup and she could tell something was on his mind. In this case, she used her powers to sort of win the argument they had, which in retrospect, she could win every argument if she really wanted to, but by doing this, Arthur lost trust in her, bringing them farther away, way farther than they have ever been before, and she feels really guilty about it, pretty much every day. When our drifter arrives, we start befriending her and actually help fix a relationship of hers. Her friendship with Lettie was really good at a time. They both truly cared about each other, but similar to the Arthur situation with trust, Lettie started losing trust in Eleanor. But to be fair, that is a bit of who Lettie is, but it's also a little bit of Eleanor's fault as well. Lettie is very hesitant with the mind reading and Eleanor's sadistic nature towards enemies. She feels this is not the way she should be acting, and it seems like she wanted to be a Protoframe, when in reality, Eleanor would never act like that towards people she genuinely cared about. But they kind of make up after saving the Hex, though there is still some bumps in their friendship. Another thing we fixed somewhat is her Kim messaging etiquette. Kaya mentions to us that Eleanor often explodes in conversations, mainly getting mad at someone that doesn't require that kind of reaction. After a long and hard conversation with Eleanor, she realizes her mistake and does not mean to do that. She says it's easy to read people in person, but over the Kim system it is rather difficult, but she promised to work on it. Some other things about her include she was made the Fable Master in Amir's Fables and Frontiers game. She's very inquisitive to our drifter, which comes with her reporting job. Her tongue grows back immediately after getting ripped out. She can, in a sense, give people a form of synesthesia indicated by Allie, which even Eleanor says she can broadcast better moods to people in Halvania. Along with that, she loves art, literature, plants, and keeping conversations going. She also had a mental connection with one of Lettie's rats and became jealous of their simple-mindedness, which brings us to some of her demons. She simply believes she is a monster and everyone sees her that way. That's why she tried leaving before. It's something that eats away at her quite often. It didn't help that she did in fact have an existential crisis by viewing Rusalka's mind. There she encountered the indifference, and this was just a whole scenario that did end fine, with no real key notes other than she was happy to know that another version of her was a nun. So that's good for her, I guess. Now, Lettie's personality can be a lot. She's Hispanic, or whatever Warframe's equivalent to that is, because she speaks in a mix of English and Spanish by calling us babas a lot, which means drool, which makes a lot of sense since we did come from the mouth of the Helminth when we first arrived to 1999. And she is an honest person who is not afraid to speak her mind. A lot of this may come from her childhood. As a kid, she was moved around a lot, going from many different military bases with her parents. What started to break down Lettie's personality into what it is now was constant bullying from other kids based on her appearance, ethnicity, and possibly attitude. Because of the bullying, Lettie's mother would advise her to keep her head down, yet Lettie couldn't let that happen, so she would always try to stick up for herself. This led to two things. One, it led to her growing pretty close to Kaya as they had similar upbringings. Second, it brought her to become a field medic for the military. She then met Arthur and even healed his wounds after he was the only survivor in a battle, so she tagged along with everyone towards Halvania. Like everyone, she was one of the first people to get protoframed and ended up becoming Trinity. This came with a lot more responsibility as a medic. She was constantly overworked healing the Hex and civilians, understandably so, since there is a lot going on in Halvania. But on top of all that work, Lettie lost a friend as well. See, before being protoframed, Lettie and Eleanor used to be extremely close, but now that Eleanor speaks through telepathy, they aren't as close. With Lettie's already developing trust issues, she started believing that Eleanor would use her thoughts against her or just succumb to the infestation. Along with that, Lettie believed that Eleanor liked being turned into a protoframe. Eventually, the two became closer to friends again, thanks to our drifter, of course. Now, a few other things. She is a sadomasochistic person, meaning she gets sexual gratification from sadism and masochism, which I don't think I really wanted to learn that, but now I know it, so that's fun. This possibly means she is also into BDSM, kind of just like Aoi and one other person you'll see later. To be fair, this one does make a tad more sense than Aoi, but that's just my opinion. Lettie also owns 4 rats named after various things from her life. Now, I will probably pronounce them wrong, but here we go. We got Vaquero, named for cowboy, Anita, named after a close friend back home, Nina, who is a deceased friend, and Tlaloc, the ancient Aztec god of rain. She loves the rats to death, and the love started from childhood. She always wanted a pet, but her family wasn't financially well off, so she just kept rats as pets. This also fueled her love for the cavia, as our drifter told her about them. Yet she still has reservations about Kalimos based on being Entradi's pet who could be spying or planning to eat her rats. Along with that, there were other causes that caused her to hate Entradi. According to her, Entradi claimed to be someone who could cure the tech rot, when in actuality, he allowed it to spread more secretly and create Protoframes. This fueled her hatred even more for Entradi, and then on top of that, Lettie also endured a lot of pain in the process of being turned into the Protoframe while watching Aoi scream the whole time, who was also enduring the same amount of pain, which couldn't have been easy to see. Now, during conversations, Lettie tends to prefer that people don't waste her time and get straight to the point. We can see this at the beginning conversations between our drifter and her. Yet she does get out of the habit just a little bit, as it has been known she has had quite a bit of fun in Amir's Fables and Frontiers game. She is also very religious. The exact religion is unclear, but she does know quite a bit about the Aztec culture, especially after one of her rats being named after one of the gods. Yeah, I'm not gonna even try saying this again. So it could hint that she is Aztec. She views death with respect, as it could be seen that the Aztecs view it with respect as well. This could be the reason why she doesn't like people messing with natural order of things. That's why she is initially mad at our drifter. We showed up from the future, which naturally would change up courses of everyone's lives, inevitably messing with a natural order. Unless time travel is involved with a natural order, then I don't know. With everything that went on with her life, she does suffer from many mental health issues, though it is implied most of them. Other Hex members do suffer with different mental illnesses, each handling it in their own way. Lettie's, in my opinion, seems to be different from everyone, as it may have started earlier than others, but that's just speculation. Her possible mental health problems include depression, low self-esteem, and trust issues. Some of this could be evident through her childhood, as believing the worst would happen, which is depression speaking, or the loss of her friend due to trust issues. Now, it may not all be Lettie's fault, but through depression and trust issues, it is shown that people tend to push people away because of these issues, as the person may believe the worst. Luckily, she wasn't put in a horrible place, as mental issues can do that to a person. She doesn't drink, nor does she do drugs, and luckily she does have at least one person she can trust despite her issues, which is Arthur. Eventually she does trust your drifter, but it does take some time. Now, this is all implied, as nothing is set in stone for her mental problems, but this is from what we can tell, and everything else relating to Lettie. Quincy is another standard military guy, or that's at least what it seems like, similarly to Arthur, of course. Quincy comes from the Warframe equivalent of Jamaica, or Zymaica? I think I'm saying that right. But not much was said about the country or his childhood, but we know he joined the Britannic army and met Arthur there. He mainly joined so that he could pay for his college and help out his own family. Unfortunately, during this time, Quincy was captured by the enemy, but he was saved by Arthur, which he absolutely hated. He did not like this, as he felt like he owed Arthur something for doing this, which is shown later on that he hates being in debt to people, so he just offers a service for a service, mainly bartering with civilians for contraband. This also coincides with some of his issues, as he believed our drifter would use the Hex as puppets if need be, which that was somewhat the reason they were made, but we don't gotta tell them that. Some of the problems could have been from losing his father, who died earlier than expected, with the only thing to remember him by was a camera, which got Quincy into photography. Other than that, not much else is known, other than he was in the group of the first Protoframes, becoming Site 09. Now, on to other stuff. He is actually not allowed to play hide and seek because he may use his Site 09 powers to cheat. As far as I'm aware, he doesn't really care much, unlike Arthur, who was also excluded, but it hurt his feelings. But kind of circling back to his possible issues, He does have his share of traumas, as one of the bigger things is constant nightmares about killing for the first time. He shared this tidbit with Amir as he too was struggling with it. He shared this because he was worried that Amir may succumb to the killing in a bad way, so he stood by Amir's side instead of watching from afar. Quincy also loves books, especially ones on finance, statistics, science, and physics. This helps in his friendship with Kaya, as she could share some intellectual conversations with him. On top of that, he also likes romance audiobooks, mainly for the plot, which, funny enough, he was pranked with one of these audiobooks on a mission before being a Protoframe, and then that's actually how he started liking them. He also memorized a song named The Unquiet Grave. That gave him chills. This song was sang by Arthur in the military, and it nearly mesmerized him. But other than this, and other than everything else I said, this is pretty much everything with Quincy. He doesn't really have as much as everyone else, but then again, he does seem like a reserved person. Amir is our eccentric, speedy man who most likely has ADHD. He does a lot at a time, so he started programming from a childhood using languages such as COBOL, C++, and Python. Living in the United States of Libertaria, he worked as an intern for information security at Halvania's reactor. This is where he encountered Entrati for the first time, as Albrecht hacked him and demanded specs of the reactor. Amir did it, and his employers were pissed. They determined he was a threat and sent the Scaldra after him. This led him straight to Entrati, as he followed a coordinate set from Entrati himself. Once together, Amir was given something that was said to be useful if the Scaldra found him, which in turn gave him the powers of the Volt Warframe, hence turning him into another Protoframe. During his transformation, he lost control of his electric powers and did cause a scar on Arthur's eye. This kind of leads to mental health. Firstly, his ADHD causes him to have a lower self-esteem and be constantly scatterbrained, which I find crazy because I actually did not know it did that. With his constant doing many different things, it could be the lead cause to a sense of dissatisfaction, believing he may not be able to do enough, especially with his speed. That also may be the reason he does so much. The need to be more than enough for everyone could be the result in this. It does help to slow down a bit, as we saw in the Hex finale when Amir managed to successfully hack the console with his newfound Parazon and guidance from the Drifter. He also tends to have a significant amount of anxiety. Eleanor tends to help with this by having constant conversations. On top of that, he does have some form of PTSD. He was never in the military and had no experience with this kind of work, so being thrown into killing does have a bad effect, like constant panic attacks. But he does share a conversation eventually with Quincy and eventually Arthur about his problems, and it's shown to help quite a bit. For a time there, he did feel like the sidekick to the Hex, until he did help Aoi with the Technosite Coda and them replacing the online group. That surely boosted his confidence quite a bit. There was a point where he got very curious about Cephalons, so there would be multiple conversations between Amir and the Drifter about them. It got to the point where he believed finding the answers to become a Cephalon is the only way to fix himself. Eventually he got over that, but it was sad to see him wanting to go through all of that mess just to fix who he was. Onto some other things that happened. We see in a video that he did blow up his only Atami cycle, which he no longer needs, of course. He also mentions his glasses are just for show, but he also is very competitive, as we see from his rivalry with Aoi in the Hex missions. This is mainly to see who has to make pizza that night, and I'm guessing either the other Hex don't want to get involved or they just weren't invited. I don't know. Amir is also into tech, games, and robotics. That shows from his personality and constant pop culture references such as Mario, Elder Scrolls 6, Back to the Future, and Star Wars. On top of that, he made a quick choose-your-own-adventure game involving the Grenier and Lotus, and even more on top of that, he made Fables and Frontiers, which I would guess is Dungeons and Dragons. Lastly, he does have a great sense of humor despite not liking being made fun of. He also used Lizzie as an industrial crusher and fed it trash, and I'm sure Flair didn't like that. And then finally, he is also into submissive BDSM, apparently. DE, you gotta stop. 3 people here are into BDSM, and I'm scared to see who is into it from the new 3 Protoframes coming. I don't know what's going on in your mind, but I guess I'll just leave it be. But anyway, that's Amir. So Flair is the last member of the band Temple and the Rippers, which actually, now that I read it, it does make perfect sense, since they became the Protoframe version of the Warframe Temple. Anyway, the band was brought to Halvania to help set the city straight according to Lieutenant Victor. which the band went strictly out of spite. During their time there, Flare got infected, and that's when Entrati showed up and Protoframified Flare into Temple, so they continued performing for Halvania only to cause all the citizens to rebel against the Scaldra despite what Victor actually wanted. In turn, Victor killed all the band members except Flare. While they mourned their band, Flare shredded on the guitar so much until their hands bled. The blood then seeped onto the guitar, causing the infestation in the blood to create a helminth-linked guitar known as Lizzie, sort of Flare's alter ego of sorts. Lizzie actually knows about the time loop, probably because of the connection to the helminth and infestation in general. She also has a huge appetite for inedible objects like tires that she makes Flare eat. She's also extremely possessive over Flare. It isn't as bad after the Drifter steps in, but that's why you can't really have a relationship with Flare, which they absolutely despise Lizzie. Their hatred of her gets less over time as our Drifter helps unite them, and it starts by Flare coming to Drifter hoping for a cure to Lizzie. During this time, we switch through different conversations. As I mentioned, Lizzie is the manifestation of the helminth, and she tells us this over the Kim system. Lizzie also mentions that she is simply confused on Flare's concerns. From there, depending on the choices we can make, we help out the pair and inevitably bring them together through the love of music. They're both thankful, even though Flare did have a crisis on the purpose of life during these conversations, which that's fun. But you know, on top of that, Flare does have more story after Halvania. Somehow after the time loop is finished, Flare is meant to become Temple. Curious about how the Warframe Temple came to the origin system, Flare asked Kaya to tell him, because he just really wanted to know what was going to happen and how it happened. So as we know, Temple was not put into production by Ballast due to its unruly behavior. So how it gets to the present time is because of Flare. Flare will eventually turn into Temple. This then requires Flare to sit on an asteroid for millennia, until the Naga drums are rung, starting the collapse. That is when Temple makes its appearance, which, thinking about it, the original Temple must be out there somewhere. So yeah, they just sit on an asteroid, wait until the ore can collapse and the Naga drums are rung by Octavia, so that they can help in on that. Yeah, but for the most part, that's everything with Flare. I don't think we learned much of their backstory. I think most conversations were pretty much just between Lizzie and Flare. So there's that. Now, Kaya is the youngest Protoframe at the age of 19, but she's incredibly intelligent. In fact, she was the one who tracked down Entrati to inevitably be turned into Nova via Protoframeage. On top of this, she prefers to not be treated as a kid and likes more straightforward communication. Now, she doesn't have much story as she seems quite reserved, however she does have one key story. When she was in college, she was known as the smart kid, but she messed up when she liked someone. She sent a provocative picture to them and somehow it got leaked onto the whole Kim system, which would later be made fun of a lot. Now everyone forgets that she is smart and just focuses on that big mess up. It did horrible damage to her reputation. People didn't see her as smart, like just not at all. They just saw her as some dude picture person. This is one of the reasons she is absurdly obsessed with time travel. She wants to travel to the future to a time that doesn't remember any of this. Which she actually manages to do. I think it is still somewhat of a mystery on how she actually did it, but she figured it out from a conversation our Drifter had with her about things like argon crystals. She one day sends a message to us saying to meet her in the Larunda relay, where we can find her to this day. This whole situation caused two things. One, this gave her intense trust issues as we can see when we first start talking to her on the Kim system. Second, this is the reason as to why in-game you cannot romance her. This event changed her outlook on everything and caused this. Though it could partially be because she has a huge crush on Arthur, but we don't know for sure. Fortunately though, after arriving at the Halvania Mall, Kaya has been warming up to everyone in the Hex. She's buddies with Lettie and they constantly have medical conversations. She likes to sneak up and scare Amir, and thanks to Quincy's book knowledge, they have casual conversations about quantum physics. A few other things about Kaya is she one time baked a cake out of spite when Drifter says she couldn't do it without learning the process. She also finds Flare more attractive than online. She also collects Digimon cards and had a massive dog named Xylo. But other than that, she really hasn't revealed much else to us. Lastly, for our Hex Protoframes, we have Velimir and Minerva. I'm going to combine their section as for the most part they share the same history. Now, Minerva was a military prodigy as Velimir was a military agent. They met together at a spy conference where somehow Velimir won her over, especially after they were trapped on a deserted island together. You know, I don't blame Velimir for getting with her, because I mean, if I was on the island with her too, I mean, I'm just gonna stop talking. So these two met Rusalka, who was orphaned at a young age from war, so Velimir and Minerva adopted her, and their life seemed quite alright until Rusalka grew up and wanted to make her own decisions. Rusalka wanted to join the Skaldra, which at the time Minerva knew a bunch of info on that told her not to let Rusalka join Skaldra, yet she couldn't tell anyone. Velimir, unknowing of this stuff, gave his permission to Rusalka and she joined the Skaldra. This put a real dampener on Velimir and Minerva's relationship. Another reason Velimir did this was because of his childhood. He never got permission or approval from his father, but the only time he did was when he married Minerva. So Velimir didn't want to be like his father, as he knows what it does to him. He wanted to give Rusalka her own choice. Years later, this led the pair to Halvania in search for Rusalka. They were disguised as salesmen when they inevitably met Entradi. Surprisingly, Entradi was completely honest with what the injections would do to them, yet they accepted anyway, turning Minerva into the Sand Protoframe and Velimir into the Frost Protoframe. Eventually, through various Kim talks, Minerva and Velimir talked things through, and it revealed how different things made each other feel. After some difficult conversations, they were inevitably brought back together. Which is perfect, because back in Deviri, the real Rusalka leaves a message for them showing she is safe, giving them a somewhat happy ending. This also means you can't romance her and Velimir since they are together. Now for other things involving these two, Minerva knows many languages, including Romanian. She also reads a lot, really liking romance audiobooks similar to Quincy. She ended up starting a book club with Lettie, Owie, and Eleanor. She does have some distrust and did get off on the wrong foot with Drifter, as she was ruthless with her questions and expected immediate results, even blaming us for what happened to Rusalka. Eventually she changes her approach, but yet she still expects blunt and straight to the point answers. Velimir, on the other hand, was more relaxed and level-headed in his talking. He tends to like telling more jokes and stories than anything. A few other things is he is a little claustrophobic and he is a smoker. Just like Minerva, he likes audiobooks but prefers war audiobooks. He also likes alcohol and cooking tech rot for some reason, and he became close to Arthur, kind of like a father figure. This couple has a bit of a history behind them, some of which we do not know just yet, but they are making amends. This is probably my favorite of the Hex Protoframe lore, especially when it expands upon the lore of Nessie Rusalka as well, as she was just kind of taken and thrown away, kind of. So I'm really interested in learning more about that, which is why I really like them. So that was everything about our Hex Protoframes. The lore is certainly getting there when it comes to this game, since these were also fully human, or once fully human, or technically still are. This means they have incredible backstories that can continue to be expanded upon, and it will continue to be expanded upon, as I believe DE will continue adding more and more conversations as time goes on. So I guess we'll see where that leads, and yeah, anyway, I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe like, maybe subscribe. I don't really give a crap. Maybe even check out the Discord and link below, and let me know what you think. I'm quite excited for the new Protoframes. So yeah, with that being said, I guess I'll just see you in the next video.